Hello and welcome back to Serving Up. Last time out, James and I opened one of the most dangerous conversations in sport where we worked our way through the men's GOAT list, which, as expected, annoyed a healthy number of people. So, as promised, we're going to do it again, but this time with the women. And again, before any of the keyboard warriors start attacking us, we know it's subjective. We know people will have favourites that are not where they want. But, you know, that's what it is. So again, joining me is James Zug, Squash's unofficial historian-in-chief, author of Squash: A History in the Game, longtime Squash magazine writer, and chair of the US Squash Hall of Fame. He helped me navigate the men's list, challenged a few names, rescued a few others, saved Peter Nicol and putting him into the top 10, and saved it from being utter chaos. So I built my list, I built my tiers, got my scoring system, and hopefully this will be less controversial than the recent El Guna International. So James, you survived the men's list. How are we feeling moving on to the women's?
Well, it's great to be back, and I really enjoyed our conversation previously. I was thinking, oh, well, this will be much easier. It's so much more clear cut. And then I delved into the record books, spent a lot of time at squashinfo.com, scrolling around and clicking on matches and tournaments. And suddenly it felt a little trickier about who deserved to be where. And luckily, like with the men, the majority of the people I'd seen play, a lot of these women, I luckily been able to watch play in matches, and but I still feel like it's really hard, you know, different eras and different styles, different achievements. So looking forward to getting into it and disagreeing a little.
Yes, disagreeing a little, hopefully just a little and not a lot. Before we get into it, I'll go through the scorer system again. So how I ranked them was give them all score out of 10, went through their 5-year peak, major titles, big match performances, longevity, skill, and then their influence and legacy. Obviously, I didn't weigh them all equally. So it didn't matter if you have an incredible 5-year peak and then retired at, say, 27. And also, one of the things we introduced last time, which I revealed for this week would be important, was the minimum age being 30. Specifically, because there will be one player who definitely comes up in this list, who is currently an active player, and she is 30. But when we get to her, we will talk about it. So the first tier, as we did last time, is sort of the honourable mentions. I've got 17 names in totals. Before I get onto my my first honourable mention, is anybody I've forgotten, James?
Yeah, I had a half a dozen names that I don't think you mentioned. I think you start with Lisa Opie, right?
I've got Lisa Opie at my number 17. Yeah.
Right. So here are some others, some of whom I think we could put into a top 20, and some we just want to mention and leave it at that. A couple that I really love are people who played in the British Open when that was one of the very few events, the only major women's event. It wasn't even called the British Open. It was just the British Championships, only open to amateur players, but yet really sort of, you know, the unofficial world championship really for women's squash. And there are a couple of women there I love. One is Sheila Spite McIntosh. I've gotten actually to meet Sheila. She lost 5 times in the British Open finals. 5 times. Then she's in the final again in 1960, and she's down 2-love in the final. So you're thinking, like, is she ever going to come back and win? And she won that title in 5, 9-6 in the 5th. So she was a very great player, went on to be a real tennis player as well. Sue Cogswell lost 3 times in a British Open final, and once in a World Open final to Heather McKay. So very good player. And then another I love is Fran Marshall. She's from Kenya, born and raised in Kenya. Won the British Open once as well in 1961. She also lost 5 times in the finals. A very good player, but just not one of the greats. But Fran, of course, is the answer to one of the great trivia questions in women's squash. She was the last person to beat Heather McKay. She beat Heather in the finals of the Scottish Open in 1962, beat her 9-4 in the fifth. So that's something. Only a couple people can claim that they beat Heather McKay, and Fran was the last. So those are two sort of from the past, as well as Sue from an earlier era. And then there's a couple from sort of more recently. We have 2 Egyptians. Nour El Tayeb got to world number 3, 16 titles, played on 3 world team championship teams. She won the Winning City. She won 3 Egyptian national titles, and that's not an easy national championship to win. And famously, she won the U.S. Open in 2017, an hour before her husband did. Amnea Abdel Kwai, definitely a very strong person as well. She was really the first great Egyptian woman. She played on the Egypt's world team when she was 13. She won 7 British Junior Open titles in a row, different age groups, won 3 world teams, and she played for Egypt in 10 straight world team championships. It's a remarkable record. She got to world number 4, won 8 titles. And unlike many Egyptians, she played for 20 years. So great longevity. And she really was sort of the pioneer woman for Egyptian squash. And of course, you can see her legacy today with the dominance of that country. And lastly, Jenny Duncalf, 11 titles, got to world number 2. She beat Nicol David in back-to-back tournaments, U.S. Open and Qatar. She had a 37-2 record against Nicol David. Only won those two times. So she's one of those people that is sort of in the wrong era. First woman president of the PSA after the merger, played a key role in the merger, which has been a just unbelievable success for our game in the last 10 years. And was a real pioneer because she and Rachel Grinham came out as gay. They were the first active squash players, professional squash players, to come out as gay, and so really played a great role, human rights for our game a decade ago as well. So those are some people that we could put somewhere, but just are interesting, and maybe they don't get into the top 20, but had remarkable careers.
Well, we've got 3 spaces in the top 20, and you've said 3 names, so it's up to you how you want to go. I mean, Jenny got to the highest ranking, so we could put her at 18. Amina and the influence of Amina, I would put her above El Tayeb just on that basis. So we happy with that? Putting Nour at 20, we put Amina at 19, and then Jenny at 18. Yeah.
What about Fran? What about Fran, who was the last person to ever beat Heather McKay on a squash court? That's pretty good, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just an era.
I know it's a different era, but she won the British Open. She lost in the finals 5 times. She played at Wimbledon a ton. She was a great athlete.
You wanted to kick
inarguably, we could say that she had the greatest career of somebody from Kenya.
You wanted to kick out Nour El Tayeb then?
I love Nour. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? Which was more influential? Who had more of an impact? Hard to say, right? Both were pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we do 20A and 20B then?
Good.
And
Perfect.
we'll just, we'll be nice and diplomatic, and 'cause it's so, the
It's so
women's.
hard. You can't compare it. The stats are not comparable. So
No,
it's
no, we'll
but
get.
I
Yeah,
love both of them, and Nour won World Juniors, and a great sport. Really, just a great leader in the game. So both of them are. I think, yeah, it's good. We'll have 20A and 20B. I like that.
okay, right. So we're getting to the
Good.
list that I had
Let's
already.
go.
So I had honorable mentions. So it's 17. I've got Lisa
Yep.
Opie. Um, she just kept running into the wrong person in the final.
Mm, mm, yep.
She was regularly, you'd see it in finals, semi-finals. She got to world number one, got to many major world finals. 20 plus PSA titles. But as we'll get into the player later on that she kept running into, but
Mm.
definitely
Yep.
deserves to be on the list.
Yeah, Lisa was great. She won the World Juniors, the official first one, unofficially the second one in 1981. She played on 4 world team title winning squads from England. Lost in the finals of the British Open 4 times before she won her one British Open win. She lost twice in the finals of the World Open, and she was 2 months world number 1. So yeah, I think 17 is a perfect number. I'm glad we're mentioning her, and she deserves to be on the list.
Yeah, she's still very much active now as well. In fairness, it's always nice to see people still being involved after they retire.
Yep.
Then at 16, I've got Natalie Granger.
Yep.
Quite an interesting international career. Played for a very long time. She got to world number 1, got to loads of major finals. Fortunately, never got the world championship.
Yep.
But she did reach world number 1.
She did. She was there for 1 month. So,
still got there. Still got there. They were in a very difficult time, as we'll get into later.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's never easy to get to world number 1, right? So,
no, she was in the top 10 for well over 10 years.
Yep.
Yep. So, I think slotting her in at 16 is sort of a fair recognition.
Yeah, I could see having her higher, or even behind Lisa. She played for 3 countries. I don't think we've ever had anybody do that. She was president of the Women's Association, 23 titles. She won the U.S. title, national title, after she became an American. She won it 6 times, which is a great record. She also became a great doubles player. She won the U.S. Doubles title 3 times and won a lot of pro events. She continues to play. She won the 35s in the World Masters twice, and the 40s once. So we like to see that, continuing to play. So she had a remarkable career in South Africa, England, and in the U.S. Worked as a teaching pro. So I could, she and Lisa, yeah, I'm happy with Nat at 16.
Then moving on to 15, I've got Cassie Jackman.
Yeah.
Obviously won the World Championship in '99 in Seattle. Got to world number 1. Unfortunately, some big, as she spoke about on the podcast on a previous episode, some big surgeries, some big injuries. Yeah. Literally, I think it was not long after she'd won the world. So what could have been, but a world champion and a world number 1.
Yeah, I want to move Cassie further up our list. She won the World Juniors, so she was world number 1 for 16 months, which is quite a long time, and 28 titles. She won 3 U.S. Opens. She famously won in Seattle in '99, and I kind of went through her career. It turns out, she loved America. Here are the following cities where she won a professional women's singles tournament. It's incredible. I don't think anybody in history has won more pro events in different American cities. She won in Vegas, Dallas, Seattle, Rye, New York, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, New York, Boston, Chicago, and Salt Lake City. That's an amazing variety there.
She did say in the podcast she loved America and had a good feeling going into Seattle.
Well, that was a great event. It was our first adult world championship for singles, and she had that back injury, back problems, and retired at age 31. Right, so it's like, a lot of people retired in that era, as we'll see. But if she'd been able to hold on a little longer, her record would have been stronger. But I think I would like to push her up closer to the top 10, considering some of her statistics. So we'll move her after we have other conversations. But she was a great player in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I did have difficulty with where to put Cassie, and I was worried about having had her on the podcast being clouded by so I was like, no, it might be in, but we'll see if we move her, and if we do where. So next up I've got Liz Irvin, which I did struggle with this over Cassie on the bit. She got to the World Championship finals, and she got some major titles. The heavy lifting with her was the legacy of what she's given into the game in terms of the coaching.
Yep.
The coaching resume is exceptionally strong. Yep. Having coached Nicol David, who's going to come up later on the list. She got quite a few titles. I'm sure you got the list down there.
No, I think if you want to say impact on the game, she maybe is like a top 5, top 10 all time, because as the daughter of a great player, and then a great player herself, and then one of the all time great coaches, and just a wonderful, great person. But as a player, she had 9 titles. She got to world number 2. Lost in the finals of the British Open 3 times, and once in the finals of the World Open. One of her famous moments was in Wales, in Cardiff, in February 1994. So Michelle Martin was on a torrid win streak. She won 19 of 20 tournaments in a row, and the one tournament she didn't win in that streak, she lost to Liz in the finals of the Welsh Classic in Cardiff. And so, that was an incredible win. And she was a very good player. I just think, if you look at her stats, I think we probably, if we're just saying as a player and not as an incredible coach who did so much for women's squash in particular, and for our game in general, not only with Nicol, but obviously with Nicol, that was an amazing partnership that we all, remember well. But I think just on her playing career, should she be ahead of Lisa? Lisa did get to world number 1. Lisa did win the British Open. So, I kind of think we could push Liz down a little bit for her playing career. And, I think a podcast we might do later on is, the greatest coaches of all time. And I think that would be fun to talk about. There's probably some people that we don't think about enough who would be on that list. And, with Liz not coaching right now, maybe some people have forgotten what a influential role she played in the game for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. I will take that under advisement. I think we're definitely going to do the coaches podcast that you mentioned. I'm holding you to that. But yeah, no, it's totally understandable separating the legacy more and rewarding, obviously, Lisa and Natalie for getting to the number 1 by being ahead. So if we move Liz to 17, and then budging everybody else up one so far.
Okay.
Next up on my, well, that's the end of my honourable mentions. I'm going to guess you're going to want to move Cassie up to the next tier.
Definitely.
So
I mean, you look at those numbers and look at the women that she's with in this next tier. You know, they're pretty equivalent. So I don't know where we put her in there, but I just think you sort of look at statistically these other women. That's, you know, they all had sort of similar careers.
Okay, well, if we move Cassie up to the next tier, which I call serious greatness.
Yeah.
So there's a few players in this one, starting off with the current number 13, Margot Lum. You know, it's so hard when it's a totally different era. I mean, just the 80s and 90s are different now for the women's game, especially after sort of Andrew took over and then obviously, as you've already mentioned, they merged in the mid 2010s. You know, it was pre the war, multiple British Opens.
Yep.
It's just I know she's sort of one of Andrew's favorites as well.
Yeah, she won 5 British Opens and then the war, the Second World War. So probably would have won more. She didn't lose a game in the finals all 5 times. So, you know, dominant. She also came to the U.S. and won the U.S. women's title in 1935. Great player at Wimbledon as well for tennis. And I think she's one of the very few left-handers that we have on our list. And I'm married to a left-hander, and so I would be remiss if we didn't say something positive about a southpaw. You know, totally a forgotten figure today, right? And definitely glad that we're able to say something about her.
Are you advocating for Cassie to go above Margot, or?
Well, that's right. I mean, let's go through this group because you know, it's impossible to compare. It's just sort of, you know, but you know, she did have a great career, 5 British Opens. You know, there are a lot of people out there who would love to have one, and she got 5 of them. So that's something pretty important.
Yeah, the next sort of few names I found really, really difficult to
separate.
To discern any of them. I sort of like say them sort of together because a lot of them are sort of from the same era as well. So at 12, I've got Laura Massaro. Obviously got to world number 1, world champion, British Open champion, kept running into the pedestal that was Nicol David. Then obviously towards the start of sort of this new era, her coaching now obviously with Hania El Hammami is starting to really show. You can see the trademark lifts and everything in Hammami's game.
Yeah, that's right.
And then similarly, Vanessa Atkinson, a world championship, won world championship, got to world number 1, just over 20 titles. And then Vicky Cardwell, again, won a world championship, got to world number 1. I mean, I've got Vicky at 10 because she's won multiple British Opens.
Yeah.
So it gave her obviously the bit extra credit for that.
Yep.
But not quite as it got the longevity of, say, Massaro.
Sure.
So, you know, a bit tricky with all that. I mean, how did you sort of find those 3?
Those 3, and do you want to have Rachel as well, or separate?
I mean, you could put Rachel into it as well, and even I've got Rachel Grinham at 9 again, world champion, very long career. She got over 30 titles, and then at 8, the last one in this group, I've got Raneem El Welily.
Yeah, well, let's
the opposite.
Okay. Yeah, let's hold off on Raneem because I think she is a separate. I think in a separate tier, but all right. So Laura. So one thing I looked up, Laura's record against Nicol David, right? One of the greatest ever, same era. Laura was 29-11. And so 11 times she beat Nicol head to head, which is really remarkable. And she beat her in the finals of the British Open in 2013. That was a huge win. She was 4 months as world number 1. Vanessa, 5 months as world number 1. Vanessa won when she won the World Open, she beat Linda Sharman, Elrani, and then the Grinham sisters back to back. She won Qatar twice, Malaysia once, US Open once, TOC twice. 25 titles. Laura has 23 titles. I mean, boy, those are just, I think Vicky, was a year at world number one. That feels different than 4 months or 5 months. She only has 10 titles officially, but that's because there were so few events back then. 4 British Open though, right? She won 4 British Opens and 1 World Open. In the World Open, she beat Susan Devoy in the semis. I looked up the British Open in 1983, and in the round of 16, she played Alex Cowie. Alex, famously the mother of Marcus Cowie, who our American listeners from the late 90s covering college squash will remember fondly. And she beat Alex 9-love, 9-love, 9-love. So Vicky also has won a couple world masters titles. Maybe, I think she's ahead of Laura and Vanessa, it feels like to me. And then, Rachel has a couple things. 16 months, world number one. 4 times she won the British Open, 1 world Open, beating her sister, Natalie, in the finals in Madrid. She won the World Juniors. And of course, until a couple weeks ago, she held the record for the most tournaments that anybody's ever played in as a professional, 325. Now Chris Gordon has surpassed her, and he's at 326. And of course, we're talking this weekend. I'm sure Rachel's like, good, I got to go out there and play again. 49 years old and still playing. And so that kind of longevity, which we never see, particularly for the women, is just incredible. So maybe Rachel's a little ahead of definitely ahead of Vanessa and Laura in my mind. And Vicky, it's a pretty similar career. Same number of British Opens, same number of World Opens. So maybe giving Rachel a nod because of her longevity, and also because she and Jenny came out, and how important that was for our game. I've got 2 other people that I think are not on your list.
Oh, okay. But before we move on, it sounds to me like you agreed with those in order.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm quite happy with that, because I did struggle to get those in an order I was happy with it till right at the end. So who's the 2 names?
Well, who do you have next on your list after Rachel?
So up next at 8 is Raneem.
And then after Raneem is?
After Raneem, I've gone into a different tier where we are going into sort of the defining champions.
That's Michelle.
Okay,
all right. So we're missing 3 people here. Okay.
3 people. Okay, yeah. Who are we missing?
All right. So one is Susan Noel, and she might just be an honorable mention. But she won 3 British Opens. She won the U.S. title in 1933. She started the Wolf Knoll Cup, which was U.S. versus U.K. Team match that ran in the 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way into the 70s, and was so a great player. She wrote a couple books that were very important books about squash. I believe Andrew Shelley could tell us this, but she's one of the earliest books on squash written by a woman. Her father was a great writer. And just wanted to mention Susan. She might be one of those people in the 20s that we're not putting up there, but she had a great career, and just wanted to put her out there. And then there's 2 people that are so in this group, in this, what's the title of this tranche?
I have got this tier.
Very good.
As yes, it's something like that. It's something like really, really good, and I wish I could play as well as
well,
them.
They're really, really good.
The serious greatness.
Okay, so one is Leilani Marsh Joyce Rouhani, and Leilani, very short career. She was 11 months world number one. She won 2 British Opens, finalist twice in the World Open, 16 titles. Yeah, world number 1 for 11 months.
World number 1 for 11 months, yeah.
That's something, and 2 British Opens.
And 2 British Opens.
Has to be in the top 20.
Well, we've got everybody in this tier has a world championship, at least one. So
maybe below this tier, but
below this tier, you got Natalie Granger then sitting at 15.
Yeah, I mean, Natalie was world number 1 for 1 month. So Leilani, I mean, she was very quick, but interesting. And the other one, which absolutely, and I remember you and I talked about her earlier, she's in this group, is Carol Owens. And Carol, 11 months world number 1. She won the World Open twice. She had 27 titles. So this is a remarkable statistic. She only played in 93 events. So, a shorter career. She retired. She was 32 when she retired. But she won everything. She won the North American Open, US Open, Tournament Champions. She won KL twice. She only reached the final of the British Open once. Only reached once. She famously was an Aussie who switched to being a Kiwi, went from Australia to New Zealand, and that rocked the world. And of course, Australia and New Zealand are fierce rivals. So that was similar to Peter Nicol a couple of years later, switching from Scotland to England. Everybody was outraged and interested in that. One stat about Carol, she was in the world top 10 for 127 consecutive months. And that's a pretty remarkable consistency on top of the fact that she was world number 1 for 11 months. So feels like she's somebody somewhere we need to include. 2 World Open titles.
Question is she top 10 and you kick out our current number 10 is Vicky Cardwell, who's obviously...
So let's look. Vicky, world number 1 the same amount of time. Vicky won 4 British Opens and 1 World Open.
You know, Cardwell won 2 worlds, but
2 worlds, never a British Open. But that's a pretty similar. That's close. Like, does your career match up to Vanessa and Laura?
I mean, we've got Laura, who won the British and the world. I mean, it's difficult. At one point, the British was considered the world championship, wasn't it? And I think we still hold it very, very close to obviously the world championship's the world championship.
But I mean, British Open's important.
So should we maybe slot her at 11 and say, well, you won the extra world championship? That is now become the biggest. You get the 11. I think Vicky, what would you rather have? 1 extra world title or 4 British?
Oh, that is a great question, right?
I'd rather the 4 British.
Yeah, I mean, particularly if you're in the UK, and the British Open, it's so old and prestigious, and the Wimbledon of squash. However, do you get to say I'm a world champion? I'm 2-time world champion. That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's 4 though. It's 4.
4's a lot.
Yeah, if it was 2, I'd maybe be M&R-ing, but I think 4 is 4's. Yeah.
So why don't we put her behind Vicky?
Yeah, put Carol at 11.
Yeah.
And
Leilani, I think you just have to say somebody who was world number 1 for 11 months, like, she was Maori, so that was great for lifting up that group of people from New Zealand as well. She won 2 golds and doubles at the Commonwealth Games. I mean, but she wasn't around for decades and decades. But I think if you get to world number 1, you win 2 British Opens, like, you got to be in the top 20, right?
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. No.
And
Okay.
Susan Noel, she had a career like some of these other people. Is it's so long ago, but she was an incredibly influential person in the game in the 30s and 40s, and created this and ran this incredible U.S. versus England event that was a massive publicity. Everybody talked about it in the 30s, 40s, 50s. The newspapers followed these women every day on tour, and she was really the spark behind that, and donated the trophy, and so that also feels good. Now, again, this is the greatest player of all time. This is not the greatest influential person of all time in the game. And she's certainly forgotten for her role off the court, but did she have a great 3 British Opens? I mean, it's all right. But I don't know. I don't know if she's top 20.
No, I would. I mean, we've already added 2 people into the top 20 after saying we've got a 20A and a 20B. We're now 22. We don't now, no.
20C.
Yeah, 22. So, but okay, definitely worth mentioning it at
least. I'm glad we talked about her.
Yeah. Definitely.
Let's move on to the next category.
Yeah, but before we go to a break, I've got Raneem in this category.
Yeah,
because she sort of joins the list of. She won the world championship. She won the world, she was world number 1, but for not as many. She didn't win the World Open as many times as the people in the next category. She wasn't world number 1 for as long. But you want to move her up?
No, I want to make sure that we lift her up, and maybe she's got her own category, because Raneem was remarkable in so many ways, unlike the other women we're talking about, right? So she ended Nicol's reign at world number 1, and that was amazing. She recovered from a devastating loss in the final of the World Open in 2014 on her home court, home fans, having match balls in the 4th. And she came back in the next tournament she won. Next tournament she played in, she won. Tournament champions. Just incredible recovery from such a devastating loss. She is one of only 3 players who ever retire as world number 1. Jonathan Power.
And that was only to have a baby.
Yes, amazing, right? And she was 31, so had more probably, but 24 titles, played on 4 world team champions, 23 months as world number 1. But I think there's two parts of her story that I think are remarkable. One is that she was the first Arab woman to be the world number 1 in any sport. So that was a very pioneering moment when she got to world number 1, dethroning Nicol, and being a role model for women all over the world, for people all over the world, to see an Arab woman succeed like that. And then secondly, her style. She was sort of like, the Rami Ashur of the women's game, just incredible deception, so deceiving, so quick with her racket. She really was one of the pioneers in playing more attacking, risky squash. Definitely benefited from the lowering of the tin. And so, a wonderful person, part of a great partnership like Nour El with a world champion husband, but in her own right was an extraordinary player. And so I kind of feel with her statistics and her what she was symbolized for squash, I kind of want her in her own little category.
In her own little category. Okay, I will have a think of what on earth to name it. But no, I mean, I do, and she was a tough one to rank because of the stop, and you can't, it's motherhood, it's not like she, hurt her back or her leg. It's, and she came back. She played at a high level again. Like, I don't know what ranking she got to when she came back, but I seem to remember her getting to at least top 10, if not top 5.
Yeah.
And she was a trailblazer for a player we've already mentioned, Nour El, retiring, having a baby, coming back, got to world number 3 again. So, definitely with like you said, the world number 1, being the first Arab woman of world number 1.
Incredible.
It's, I've had this conversation when I spoke with Sally Archibald from Girls in Motions of people when they see somebody who looks like them achieve something, they can then go, I can do this. We mentioned Amina, who started it, then Raneem took it one step further, and now, I mean, to keep with the motherhood theme of, if you include Goha, who's obviously at the moment off, if she was still playing, the top 4 female players would all be Arab, would all be Egyptian.
That's right.
And it all goes in stages from Amina to Raneem.
That's
to now the 4 who are dominating at the moment. But no, I definitely agree in giving her own tier to herself, which we gave to we did give to Hash and Calm in the men's, and it is somebody coming up that I've given their own little tier in a little bit. But we'll give her her own little tier. And then moving on to the next one, I've got the defining champions. All of these won multiple world championships or the equivalent. So at 7, you've already mentioned her name. I've got Michelle Martin. Obviously part of the Martin family. You mentioned her brother in the men's. Multiple, 3 world championships, 6 British. There's a clear dominance in there where she was either in the final or the semi-final, and you were shocked if she didn't get there. I think 7 is a fair place to put her with the next 2 people ahead of her. How do you feel about that with Michelle?
Well, you could argue about Janet and her, but I feel like Michelle was a great player. Brett and Rod were great players. So growing up in a family like that probably wasn't so easy. And she was 58 months at world number 1. And 6 British Open, 3 World Open, 1 US Open. She's in the PSA Hall of Fame. When she retired in December 1999, she had been in the world top 10 for 142 months. So incredible consistency. 4 world team titles, 56 titles. She's also won the World Masters. So I went through her results a little bit. She did that 19 out of 20 events that was interrupted by Liz Irving. She also won 8 events in a row. She also retired at age 32. So you have a lot of these women. I think it's a little bit of the way they were training, and maybe today women can stay on, men too, stay on longer because we know more about how to train and keep our bodies together. Retiring at age 32 seems a little young now. So Michelle was an incredible player. I saw her play. There was a period. I mean, she just was the best woman in the world, and like there was no doubt. And I think to be in this category, you have to be like that. You have to be like dominant, and people going, I don't want to play you in the draw. I'm going to face you in the quarters, and that was Michelle Martin.
Yeah, no, definitely. You were looking at the draws going, please be in the other half, please be in the other half, please be in the other half. Well, I said I've got Janet Morgan above her. Obviously, very difficult because there was no world championships. 10 British Open titles. It is a decade of people seeing who's second fiddle. It's a long, even back in that era, that's a long time to be fighting for second place.
Yes. I mean, she was a great athlete, played at Wimbledon, I think a dozen times. She came over to the U.S. and won our title twice. So, clearly a top 10 player. She ran the game, the Women's Association in the 70s and 80s, which was a very controversial role that she played in the game, and had a very contentious relationship with the Pro Tour when that was founded in the early 80s. So, but again, this is just about on court. I think 10 titles, 10 British Opens, like, and plus the 2 US, like, you know, clearly a great dominant player. And, you know, I don't know where you put her because we just don't have the stats. She didn't play in, you know, hundreds of tournaments, and there was no world ranking. But, you know, she's got to be in the top 10.
Well, I'm happy. I'm happy with this sandwich between Michelle and the next person.
Yes.
Because the next person I've got is Sarah Fitz-Gerald, who got 5 world championships. Obviously, her and Michelle sort of getting it out between themselves for the best part of the 90s and sort of the start of the 2000s, with the odds like Cassie Jackman winning in 99. But, you know, it's 5 world titles and two British, I believe, as well.
Yes. That's, I mean, she it's a close call. She was 40 months at world number 1. Michelle was at 58. But she won 62 titles. Michelle won 56. Sarah sort of had maybe a little bit more of longevity. She won the World Juniors. She won 6 world team titles, Commonwealth gold. She's won 4 Masters titles. She was vice president of the World Squash Federation, so she played a great role building courts today. So let's say, well, you know, how about their matches in between the two of them, right? And so Sarah beat Michelle in the finals of the World Open, 9-3 in the 5th in Sydney, in Michelle's home city, 97. So that's amazing. And then the famous match in Stuttgart in 1998, where Sarah saved 7 match balls in the finals of the World Open to beat Michelle 10-9 in the 5th. So those 2 wins, particularly Stuttgart, which just like was one of the most incredible matches that nobody saw. I give the nod a little bit to Sarah for sure.
This sounds like you're in agreement entirely with that.
Yep.
That tier. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. Well, before we go into the last 2 tiers, we're going to take just a short break to thank our sponsors, and then we are going to most definitely argue, because I argued with myself for the next one. It is so difficult. But we'll take a quick break and thank our sponsors, and then we'll come right back. A big thank you to our sponsors for this podcast that make it possible. We have ACC Leisure, who are helping secure the future of leisure in the UK. Any flooring needs whatsoever, whether that's squash, sports hall, anything whatsoever, reach out to Faye, Andy, and the team. Be more than happy to quote you. And also to Oliver UK, the racket pioneer since 1938, for all your racket sports needs, whether that's squash, paddle, pickleball, or badminton. Okay, let's get back into the debate with James. And we are back. Okay. Alluded to it earlier, I have one person in a tier all by themselves. I call it the what if, and very similar. I mean, Susan Devoy, very similar, I think, to Bjorn Borg in tennis. Retired at 27, at the top of the game, winning multiple world championships when they were playing every other year. So you could easily argue she would have won more, not just because she retired early, because there was literal gaps while she was playing, in between years where she was winning.
There were, I think, 4 years that they didn't have a World Open where she'd won it the year before or the year after kind of thing. Like there were 4 times that she wasn't given the chance to win a World Open.
Yeah, she could have been an 8-time world champion and still retired at 27, which, we've got people coming up who have won that many world championships but did not achieve it at 27. If she hangs on to Michelle Martin at 32, how many of those does she win? How much does that take away from Sarah Fitz-Gerald and Michelle Martin? But, and I say it was 8 British as well. When that was held every year, so you could easily say, well, she should have gone 8 and 8. She's definitely a tier above Sarah and Michelle and Janet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just the 3 that are coming up have just got the longevity. That's literally the only thing I could ding Susan on, was the fact that she retired early, because everything else, if she continues, just makes the conversation even harder.
Well, my opinion, she should be number 3, not number 4. And
okay.
And I think statistically, she just has a better career right now than who you have at 3. 105 months as world number 1. 105 months. Here's a great stat about her. So she played in 62 events. Tiny number, right? That's because that's all there was back then. Of those 62 events, she reached the final 57 times. And she won 54 times. So 54 titles out of 62 events. I mean, that is just incredible dominance. So you go through the matches. She only lost 15 matches as a pro. She had this streak, 15 events in a row she won. Then 8 in a row, 16 in a row, 13 in a row. So, utter dominance. And this is one factor that is going to make you decide to move her up to 3, was that she was so dominant, tournament after tournament. She's the youngest ever to be world number 1. 20 years and 2 months for a woman. Youngest ever. And so like you'll argue about the next person, oh, they were so great so young. Yes, but like Susan Devoy, world number 1. The statistic for me is 105 months. It's just an incredible statistic. So she was a great player, dominant player, and I think she's the 3rd best of all time. So,
I mean, if she didn't retire at 27, she'd have an argument for number 1. If
you never know, even if they just played the World Open in those years, right? Like let's say she wins 3 of them, or even 4. Right?
Give her 3. Say she loses one of them.
Fine, right? I mean, even though she never lost, right? She plays in 62 events. She wins 54 of them. I mean, that's an amazing stat. Nobody has that stat except for our number 1 player. So it's like, the statistics and also it was the domination. It was like tournament after tournament. She was brutal. So retiring so young is it's just that's how it went for her. And it's a great what if. I mean, she played for 10 more years. Who knows what
I don't even think she needs to play for that long. Just, for me, it's what ifs. What if this didn't? What if that? And obviously, you're saying months. The person I've got at 3, it changed from months to weeks.
Yes.
So
I've calculated it back to months.
Yeah. But it's just it's easier to say number 1 when it's on a monthly basis, not a weekly basis.
Totally.
It's just the player we've got at 3 is.
The player you have at 3.
The player I have at 3. I just think Susan, just in her own bubble, and it's obviously we can't turn back the clock or anything, but You know, I think so many people will think the person I've got at 3 should be 1.
And I strongly disagree with that. And you know, she's an incredible player, great person, love her. But you know, it's hard because her career's not over. So
yeah, and I did. I mean, we'll go into it. I mean, I find it. I could move Susan out of her own tier, but I kind of want to. Maybe I'll put it in a 1.5 and just say, look, really, she should probably be in 1, but due to the tournaments being outside of her control. If she was if she was equivalent on the men's, well, at that time the men's were played every year, so she would have had the opportunity. It was just because
they were separate events. Yep,
they were separate. Yeah, imagine if they merged 30 years earlier and she gets the world every year.
Yep.
You know, maybe then she doesn't retire at 20. It's just so many what ifs and maybes.
Yeah,
I struggle.
Even with where, I mean, you just say, okay, here's her career, here's what she actually did. She's had a in my mind a better career than our number 3 right now. You just like, you know, and we can't change what she did, and there's still more to come for our number 3. But I feel she's had a better career.
I'll say, well, we'll go on to that. So I've got 3 people in the top tier because they are the 3 people most commonly argued for the GOAT.
Yes.
I mean, I've got at number 3, and interestingly, I don't want to say I never thought of putting her at number 1. I just felt the other 2 were, like, when I did their points are like stupid. Like, the one's like 79, the other one's like 79.5. They're really, really close. But I've got Nour El Sherbini at 3. Obviously, she's 30, hence why I created the 30 and over rule.
It was just a coincidence.
Just a coincidence, you know. 30 is just a nice round number. If you're comparing her directly to Susan, you got 8 world championships. I believe, is it 2 British?
That's a good question. 4 British.
4 British. So you've got 12 of the 2 biggest.
Yes.
Susan's got 4 worlds and 8 British, so she's got 12 as well.
Correct.
But would you rather have 4 extra worlds or 4 extra British?
Well, that's right. And Susan didn't have the chance, so
didn't have a chance. It's cruel.
But I mean, Nour had a great career, but 64 months at world number 1. So you have 105 months, and then you have 64.
And changed to weeks.
Yep, but you know, you add it up, 64 months. She's got 47 titles, and Susan's got more titles. Okay, 54. Nour won 3 World Juniors. She was 13, famously at the first one. When she's 14, she reaches the final of the World Open. First time unseeded player had gotten to the finals in 20 years. And then she loses 11-9 in the 5th in that tournament. She beat Nicol 11-9 in the 5th in the semis. She won 4 world teams. This year, she's won 3 events. She's won a lot, right? You know, she's 2 Hong Kong, 5 TOC, 3 Windy City, 1 US Open, 1 Qatar, 1 El Gunya. Never won in Malaysia, the Malaysian Open. So here's the reason why I want Susan ahead of Nour. And like, Nour's amazing. And of course, she's still playing, right? She just lost in the finals at El Gunya. I think everybody is thinking she's going to win the world championship later this season, right? Like, would you bet against her? Like, no way. She's won eight times. Like, it's an amazing career. But here's why I feel she's yet. And, you know, we have to wait till her career ends, because I'd be very surprised if she stays in this. You know, I think she can move up for sure. But how many times has Nour El Sherbini won 4 tournaments in a row on the tour?
You're going to tell me 0, aren't you?
0. How many times has she won 3 tournaments in a row?
Don't tell me that's 0 as well. I can't be 0. Twice.
Right? So what I've seen out of some of these other women is a little bit of sustained greatness, of 5 tournaments, 10, and I've listed some of these things, right? Susan Devoy won 16 tournaments in a row in one stretch. And Nour has never had that dominance where, month after month, she's just been the best player. She hasn't.
Are we dinging her though for obviously the women's game gets professionalized much later than the men's? So they're sort of, I don't want to say catching up, but like if we look at the women who are playing now, Goha is going to have a decent chance if she comes back to try and knock on to the top 10. Hamami is trying her very best to, win her first Worlds this year. So she's going to be trying to knock on the door. You've got Amina Orfi, who's won 4 World Juniors, and she's only 18. You've got Olivia Weaver, who, yes, she hasn't beaten Nour El Sherbini yet. She's certainly come close. Is the competition higher because the professional? It's now caught up.
It's hard to say, like, compare the eras, but yes, like, it's definitely incredibly strong right now. But in the end, like, you just have to play against who you play, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit with another player, like, or in fact, both other players, like, was the level high enough? Were there all-time greats that they had, and it's like you can't control who you have to play. And I see Nour not being as dominant yet. And, I think, a couple more years, her career, her resume, her curriculum vitae is going to be just unbelievable. And it's really great right now. But when I hear people say, oh, she's clearly the greatest woman ever, I'm like, the greatest woman ever has to win more than 3 tournaments in a row. Like, they're just like, for me, that just is part, like, you have to. And you look at any other sport, when people are the all-time greats, it's because they do things again and again. They don't just do it once. Now, she's won 8 World Opens, and that's the defining tournament. And so, you could argue she should be higher up because she's done that. But I just look at, her career. It's like, would I rather have Susan's career? I don't know. That's pretty tough.
I mean, you get to retire early.
Yeah.
So, but the difference is, that you mentioned Sherbini just being in the final with Hamami. The winner got, what was it, $103,000. Can you imagine telling Susan Devoy, oh, are you sure you want to retire? Because the tournament next month, the winner gets $103,000.
Yeah. I mean, she didn't win $103,000 in a year.
So
yeah, I'm fine leaving Nour there or even moving her up. It's just
I can't move it up.
It's hard. It's hard right now.
I can't move it up now.
If
she gets to say 10 worlds, I don't think, Joey said it during the broadcast that he thinks Nour is the GOAT
right now. I know.
I don't think say it right now, but if she wins like 2 more worlds or a world and 2 British, then I think she overtakes the next person, who I've got as Nicol David.
Yes.
And I really wrestled with Nicol, and I mean, you mentioned it a few times, Heather McKay. I was really struggling with who to put. Because of the era difference. Nicole's obviously got the Worlds, but the Worlds didn't exist until Heather was in her 40s. It was every other year. She was, 42 and 44, I think, when she won it. I mean, we've just talked about Susan Devoy retiring at 27 years after Heather had won her second, let alone winning in your 40s. Nicole's got the 8 Worlds. She was number 1 for, I mean, you're going to have it in front of you. How many months was it?
112 months. And that's the record. And that's one way to look at greatness. 112 months. Right. And, she won 5 British Opens. Twice it wasn't played when she was in her prime. Twice won the Commonwealth gold at the Commonwealth Games. 5 times the Asian Games gold, which is an incredible statistic that I don't think anybody will ever break. In that. So she played 198 events. Got to the finals 102 times. 81 titles. So I mean, it's just like
that's 80% in finals.
And Nour has 47 titles. Yeah, now it just is what it is. Like the numbers are different, but the era is different. So she broke the record for longest time in the world top 5, which was Michelle Martin's 142 months. She broke the record for the longest time consecutively in the world top 10, which was Peter Nicol, 150 months. She spent 177 months in the top 20. 177 months. And also, what we were saying, she won 9 tournaments in a row, then 12 in a row, 9 in a row, 8 in a row, 8 in a row. And so I think, that again is that sort of like level where, consistently winning, 1 tournament champions, 3 US Open. Now the TOC didn't have a top tier draw for most of her career. 3 US Opens, 8 Malaysian Opens, which is very hard to play in your home country. 10 Hong Kong, 5 Qatar Classics. So, and we all saw her play. Incredible sportsmanship. Becoming this incredibly famous person, a huge celebrity in Malaysia, carrying all that pressure with such dignity. A great role model as well. So, I don't know. Personally, I want Nour's career to be finished before we try to compare and contrast. They both have 8 world titles, so it's not like Nour's ahead of her on that, and basically Nicole's ahead of her on everything else.
Yeah, I mean, Sherbini's got the 2 British, but
what do you say?
I think Nicole's got 5.
Nour has 4 British.
Nour had 4 British. Nicole's got 5. Is it?
Yep.
So, it is tricky because Nour obviously hasn't finished. But as of right now, I don't think you can put her above Nicol.
I agree.
Very much, it's in the cards easily there.
And maybe in 5 years we do this again, or 10 years, and we have a more full resume to bring in, and I mean, I'll say it right now. I think she's going to win the world championship. I think she's going to win the world. Like she has this magical way of peaking at the right time, and there are a lot of players in tennis and golf who do the same thing, right? And they try to peak for the Grand Slams, and she's definitely one of them. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, somebody will have the Olympic gold to add on their stable in a couple of years.
Yes.
Somebody will have that to go, that's me, that's me, and potentially could be the only one. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with
that's right,
Melbourne in 2032, but
Brisbane.
She does very much have that knack of, that's the biggest tournament, so I am going to be ready for that. I mean, the Egyptian airports have got it up with the, when she's holding her fingers with the trophy, and obviously they have to keep changing it because, she wins it like 75-80% of the time. I remember I was watching some documentary on, and they were just like, I don't know what she's going to do when she runs out of fingers. Like they just expected to win like 3 more. But yeah, she just, and like I said, if she wins 2 more, or one more in a
Even
British.
even one more is I think is maybe determinative. And I think you're right. Like 50 years from now, when we look back, if we only have one gold medal opportunity, and let's say it's one of the big three, or whoever wins it, that'll be a big number to add to a career for sure.
Yeah. Especially if it's a case of, say now it is Sherbini doesn't win another world or British, but she wins like gold. She's going to be going, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I may have won one less British, but I got one more gold.
I got a gold medal. And I mean that, and Nicol famously said that during one of the campaigns 20 years ago. She said, I would trade all my world opens for one gold medal. And I think that is a pretty common feeling, right? That's something that everybody understands. Oh yeah. I was in the Olympics, I won a gold medal in the Olympics. Like that just gives you goosebumps.
I mean, I started playing in 2005 and I've always heard about it. We've been trying it for, it'll be 20 plus years when we finally get in. So very much something we've been trying for. But I don't want to get off, because I've realised we've mentioned her name and said she's number one, and then we've not spoken about it at all, other than the odd mentions. But one of the first names I remember hearing about, because the Welsh women's national coach at the time was sort of an amateur squash player around the same time as Heather was playing. And I remember asking her, what's your best achievement? She's played for Wales, she's travelled the world. And she went, oh, well, I got to, she said, it was only once I got to play Heather, and I lost 9-love, 9-1. She said, that point means more to me than my caps. And
that is a great story.
Yeah, and I'm like, you played for Wales like however many times? She's like, yeah, but I got a point off Heather. I got a point off Heather, which she had to win 2 in a row because it was British, and she had to win her off a serve. She was allegedly there when Heather lost her last match, and she said, I remember hearing Heather saying, I am not losing again.
Yeah.
And she said, when I heard her say it, I believed her. And just, it's difficult because of the era, but she was effectively world number one for like 25 years, effectively.
That's right.
She started playing squash at 18, a month later wins the Australian Open.
Yeah.
Who does that? Like, I don't care that it was in the 60s.
That's right.
Like, you play a sport for a month and then you win a tournament, like a proper tournament, not like a club. And she won a proper tournament after a month, beat the number one seed in the first round.
Yeah, no, I love what you've said. Here's I got the tournament for the 1968 British Open. Okay. First round, she wins 9-love, 9-1, 9-love. Second round, she wins 9-love, 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 9-3.
Oh, 3 points. That's awful.
Quarterfinals, 9-2, 9-love, 9-love. Semifinals, 9-love, 9-love, 9-love. Finals, 9-love, 9-love, 9-love. And you can argue until you're blue in the face. Well, nobody was professional. These women weren't training. And you go through the list of the women that she beat. I mean, a lot of these are great women. These are like the Fran Marshalls, Sheila McIntosh. Strong, worthy champions in their own right. And so it looks like she lost 6 games from 1962 until she retired. And one of them was in the finals of the 1979 World Open, when she was well past her prime and no longer playing squash regularly. So 6 games.
Yeah. Even if those were just in a row, she loses twice out of 16 years.
You know,
I
I mean,
mean,
she never lost a match. Never lost a match from 62 until she retires. That's 18 years basically. 16 straight British Opens, the 2 World Opens. She played field hockey for Australia. Great athlete. And looks like statistically she just lost 2 matches in her entire career before that streak began in 62. And one was to Fran Marshall. So that kind of dominance is just extraordinary. And she was a huge celebrity. She was a little bit like Hashim Khan. Everybody heard of Heather McKay. She worked as a teaching pro. She was one of the first women in the world to work full-time as a teaching pro. She worked in Toronto for 10 years. She came down to the States and beat everybody in the States, won our national championships. She won the first professional women's squash tournament in North America in 1977. Great publicity around all that. She also became the best racquetball player in the world because, when you're Heather McKay, you can do that. So a great celebrity, really famous, and, a lovely person. And, it's just hard to say, but like that kind of dominance, right? To not lose a match for the last 18 years of your career.
yeah, it's, and we mentioned Janet Morgan, who got 10.
Yes.
This is 6 more.
Yeah.
It's, people cut their right arm off for the couple, let alone 6 on top of 10.
Yeah.
It's, there's no, if she's winning World Opens when she's 44, this, even if they did it every other year, she's going to have like 15.
Well, she could have played more. I mean, she just said like, I don't want to do the travel. It's not like, I mean, she was still the best player. She didn't go and lose in the quarters, right? And then be like, well, okay, it's time for me to retire. Like, we say about Susan Devoy, Jonathan Power, these people retiring as world number 1. Like, she was definitely the best player in the world when she retired, like hands down, not even close. Hadn't lost a match. And so, she could have played longer. Absolutely.
And you can see that from the World Opens that are preceding until Susan Devoy sort of decides it's mine. We get like a different winner every time pretty much, and the finalists are all sort of different, and but like you say, what was stopping Heather other than, like you say, the travel?
Yeah,
she could have done, say, 79, 81, won those 2 at 46, 48, and then Susan Devoy started. Because I think at that point, if she was 50,
I don't know.
You don't know, but I mean, I'd like to have thought Susan Devoy, with that 30-year age gap or whatever it is, would have still won hers even if Heather was playing. But I don't, even with the era thing, I just don't see how. Again, I say at the moment, if Nour wins a couple more British, then you do start to talk about it. But it's, I think she's one of them. There's very few sports. We mentioned it briefly in the men. There's very few sports with sort of a unanimous great. Obviously in hockey, you've got Gretzky. I mean, they call him the great one. It's kind of easy.
No, but like with Gretzky, like Ovechkin has now surpassed, his career goals. I think Gretzky scored something like 89 goals in one season. So like, nobody's going to do that. But like Ovechkin has had arguably, as good of a career individually. Nobody, I mean, we can guarantee this. Is anybody going to win, 16 straight British Open?
No.
I mean,
nobody's winning 16, let alone straight. Nobody's winning 16.
Yeah. Like, I don't think anybody's going to win 10 straight for squash ever again, because of the physicality. she is hands above everybody else. Like, it's just in both men and women, there's nobody who's been as dominant. I'm doing an article for her on her for Squash Player for her 85th birthday that's coming up, and I mean, it's incredible how good she was for how long. Like, beating everybody 9-love, 9-love, 9-love. Like, as you said, like, to get 1 point was, and everybody would make bets about this. Like, how many points would Heather McKay lose in the British Open, right? And keeping it under single digits. It's like, for a tournament.
That's the thing. I mean, that's what was it, 69? Where you read out the results?
I think it was 68. What did I say?
8. I mean, if you add up the points, are the points
68.
even enough? Are the points even enough to
win a game?
Yeah, yes, the era will. If Nour wins more, or if somebody like Amina or Panya or somebody who's only just learning to play squash eventually comes along and starts winning 12 worlds and 6 or 7 British, then there'll be a discussion.
Yep.
But just 16 is too dominant. It's just too dominant.
So here's what happened in her last World Open, 1979, in Sheffield.
She's 44 at this point, which
I mean, amazing, right? So she wins 9-love, 9-1, 9-love, 9-1 first round. Then she wins 9-love, 9-love, 9-2, 9-2, 9-5, 9-4 in the quarterfinals. Okay, in the semis against Angela Smith, who was a great player from England, she lost a game, 10-9, and then she wins 9-4, 9-3, 9-1. In the finals against Sue Cogswell, who we've already mentioned, great player, she loses another game, loses 9-6, and then 9-3, 9-1, 9-4. And so she loses 2 of the 6 games that she ever loses in her career. In 79. I mean, not playing regularly. I mean, it's incredible achievement. And today she's the elder stateswoman, what do you want to say, of the game. If we get into Brisbane, you're going to point to her role there as being, one of the most famous athletes in Australia. Happens to be a squash player, and she's played a behind the scenes role there in Brisbane. It's her legacy. It's hard to argue. Right now, in 2026, you got to say she's the greatest woman of all time.
I mean, I remember I went to the Dutch Open it'd have been 2010, might be 2009, and my coach said, "Oh, I've just seen the Jeffs come this year, Jeff Hunt, obviously, who we mentioned in the men's. Should you mind? I want to have a picture with him because I don't get to see him." And this was the coach that played Heather. So we went over to took a picture and obviously got to talking. And I asked him, I said, "Oh, what was it like with Heather?" And he said, "Well, the first time I met her, all I could hear was this ball thundering down like a court at the end. And I went to the bloke, I said, 'Who the fuck is hitting that?' And they went, 'That's Heather.' And he was Heather. And, just, and he would say that they'd have, good matches, good battles. And
yeah, that's right. And then they worked together at the Institute for decades. She was a great coach, a great mentor. A lot of the women say that. Sarah Fitz-Gerald has talked about that. She was, not that plays a direct role here, but she, was a key part of the game, not only as a teaching pro in North America, but then, back at the Institute and training up the next generation, which, turned out to be one of these golden generations of a couple of the players we mentioned in our top 20, were mentored and coached by her. So, had a great legacy with that as well.
I think that is we mentioned the current crop of women, obviously being Arab, being Egyptian, but the original dominance was the Antipodean, New Zealand, Australia.
Yes.
Like we said, we've Heather did the 60s and 70s, Australian. You've got Devoy then in the 80s, New Zealand, and you've got Sarah Fitz-Gerald and Michelle Martin, obviously Australian, and you've got 60s, 70s. You've got 4 decades of Antipodean dominance.
That's right.
And even when it gets taken over, it's from another Asian country in Malaysia. It's that was the original dominance for the women's game.
That's right. And I mean, we don't have yet the longevity of the Egyptian dominance. Yet. And we probably will. But if you look at that decade after decade, we have other women, Carol Owens, Vicky Cardwell, there were a lot of women coming out of Liz Irving, coming out of Australia, New Zealand. A lot of men were coming out too. But the dominance from the Southern Hemisphere, incredible, right? And it'll be interesting to see. We all talk about this. Egypt, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what, will they still be dominant? Will they be even more dominant? Or what's the longevity there? It all comes in cycles. When we were talking about this 30 years ago, everybody's like, well, Pakistan's amazing for the men. And Australia for the women. I mean, New Zealand, we're never going to, and that's evolved. So it's, nothing's permanent in the game.
No, it's not. It will be interesting. At some point, you would think it would happen. Obviously, we can't see it right now, but I'm sure it will happen. So I will run through the list very quickly before we get
we've had a lot of different additions and subtractions.
So I'm going to go in reverse order because I think that's going to be easier. So we got Heather, both easily agreed that's 1. Nicol at 2, Nicol David at 2. I am sticking with Nour at 3.
Okay, I protest.
You protest. I will note that it is under protest. I've got Susan. I will put her in a 1.5 tier. It's just too many what ifs for me. I will note for the record, for the future, I do think if she plays longer, her and Heather have a very big fight for that number 1 spot. But unfortunately that didn't happen. Then at 5 we have Sarah Fitz-Gerald. Then at the 6 we have Janet Morgan. At the 7 we have Michelle Martin. At 8 we've got Raneem El Welily. 9 we've got Rachel Grinham. At 10 we've got Vicky Cardwell. Then at 11, we've added in Carol Owens, which moves Vanessa back from 11 to 12. We've got Laura Massaro at 13, Margot Lum at 14, Liz Irvin at 15, Leilani Joyce at 16, Natalie Granger at 17. Natalie Granger goes to 18. Lisa Opie goes to 19. And then rounding out the top 20, we would have Jenny Duncalf.
Wait, did we get Cassie?
Yeah, that's who I've skipped. We got Cassie, sorry, because I realized we moved Cassie. We moved Cassie up to 40? So Cassie was 15, sorry. Then it was Liz Irvin at 16. Leilani Joyce at 17. I'll put it in a nice list afterwards.
Okay.
But it moves Jenny to 20. Moves Amina then to 21. And then we have Nour El Tayeb at 20A and Fran Marshall at 22B.
Perfect. That's a pretty good list.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than what I thought we'd get to. But Leilani and Carol were 2 I was arguing about putting in, so I'm glad you you
Okay.
picked up on them to get them added in. But the same as the men's, I have some awards.
Yeah.
Their
Good. What do you got?
their first one being the wrong era, just
Mhm.
the person who can blame their parents for having them at the wrong time. So I've got 3 nominations, so feel free to add in your own. I've got Rachel Grinham,
Yep.
obviously just a really poor time with Nicol David being there. And obviously in the 90s, she would have had Michelle Martin, Sarah Fitz-Gerald at the end of it. And
Yep.
even if she has survived Nicol David, because as we mentioned, she was playing for a while, she runs into the Egyptians. Lisa Opie, the best sort of the 90s between Michelle and Sarah, and
Yep.
Laura Mazzaro, Nicol David, and then when Nicole finally looks like retiring, she has Nour El Sherbini playing.
Yep.
Just playing 2 of the 3 or 2 of the 4 greatest players during the entirety of your career is just cruel.
Yep. Good.
So I think it's kind of tough to decide who wins. Have you got a wild card, or who would you think?
I mean, there's a lot
award?
of these women at the second level here that, you know, happen to have that happen to, right? That they, you know, that they, you know, Fran Marshall, right? Like, or Steve Cogswell, or Sheila McIntosh, Nour El Tayeb. I mean, you know, any one of these, Jenny, they're going to win a lot of titles if that one person has an injury and just isn't there for a year or two, you know, pulls their Achilles, and all of a sudden, so it's hard to argue with any of them. I'm fine taking all of them, or, you know, they're all in that, like, what if?
I say I'm leaning towards Rachel, just on the basis she finished the highest out of all of them on our rankings.
Yep.
How much higher does she go if literally her prime perfectly overlaps with Nicol David?
Yes.
If you take Nicole out, is she more than a one-time? She's definitely more than a one-time champion. She definitely wins more than the 30-odd titles that she wins. And she was number 1 for, what was it, 16 months?
16 months. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good already. And so if Nicole's not there, she's going to be,
you know, a lot higher up the list. So we'll give her that honorary award then.
Yep.
And then the next awards I've got is the 5-game final. So who are you? You know it's going to 5. Who would you pick? And the ones I've got, I'm going to start it by saying I've not put Heather in because she doesn't play 5.
Well, she never went to 5.
No, you'd have to start with a handicap. So that's the only reason she's not picked. But the 3 I've got is Nour El Sherbini. We've already mentioned her knack for just win. Well, no, it's not a knack, is it? She just times it to win. But you look at how many of those she gets through and wins in 5. You know, it is remarkable. Susan Devoy.
Yep.
Again, you know how fantastic she is, and Nicol David. You know, fantastically fit, and the speed.
Yep.
You certainly weren't worried about her running out of steam in the 5th, regardless of who she was playing.
Arguably the greatest mover we've ever had in the game. Yep.
She just glided. Just, you know, I mean, she very much reminded me of. I mean, Roger Federer used to play squash, and he says that squash really helped him with his movement on the court, and people say how he sort of dances across. And I think Nicol David is very similar of how she does just seem to glide across the court.
Yep.
Any honorable mentions for that? I mean, obviously,
well, there's do you have a category for one game?
I do have a category for one game. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna agree with you on that because I have somebody I want for the one game.
Yes, they can win more than one award. They can win more than one award.
No, I'm happy. I mean, Nicole was great. I'd probably take Nicole.
I don't know if it's recency bias with Sherbini, because obviously she's won those big ones. Obviously, like I said, she beat Nicole in 5 when she was only 14, wasn't it?
14.
If you're 14 and you're beating Nicole in 5, that's
okay.
That's
maybe
pretty,
let's take Nour then. Let's take Nour.
Okay, we'll give I'm sure I can give Joey in Texas. Said, "Do you mind giving this imaginary award to Sherbini for me?" Um, and then my next category, I've got some overlaps, but it's the clear your schedule. The more I think about it, I mean, we probably don't need more. We're probably sort of an eras thing of the ones I've got listed is Raneem El Welily, Sherbini, Nicol David. I mean, you could probably add absolutely anybody in this list.
Yeah. Yeah.
But from what we've discussed and mentioned, I think it's clear that it's going to be Raneem because of the magic that could happen. You know, similar to how we gave the award to Rami.
Yes.
If those two were in back-to-back finals, you were sitting there loving life because you knew you were going to see a Mizuki or 6 Nicks or something crazy.
Yep.
So I'm going to guess you're in agreement to that.
100%.
As an easy, clear your schedule for Raneem.
Yeah. Yep.
And then my next one is longevity. The longevity monster, which we've had a few in the women. Again, I think it's probably an easy winner, but I've got Rachel, Nicole, and Heather. I mean, we spoke about it when we give Heather the number 1, but again, it's 16 years. It's pretty easy. She's getting the longevity award.
Yep, no doubt.
And then the next one is peak dominance. I mean, we've spoke about it. So this is just if you had to pick a 5-year stretch, whose 5-year stretch is the best? The 3 I singled out, no surprise, is Heather, Nicole, and Susan.
Yep.
As much as I want to give it to Heather, because you can just say, well, she didn't lose for 5 years. You've got people like Susan who played more tournaments.
Yes.
During the 5 years.
Yes.
So it's probably between them two. I think Nicole's like a 3 out of those.
Yeah. I mean, Susan, you know, was just so dominant, right? I mean, and we saw this with Nicole. You know, she'd lose a match here and there every year, and there were years where like Susan did not lose a match
when there was more tournaments and more competition. And yeah.
I mean, Michelle Martin also had a incredible couple of years. That one stretch where she won 19 out of 20. That's pretty amazing as well.
That is pretty amazing. Yeah, but I think since I didn't give you her in the top 3, we should give Susan the peak dominance of you picked that 5 years and that's the 5 years you want.
It's a pretty good 5 years. Yeah.
And I think she might win the next award as well. So my next award is the sliding doors. So this is very much the what if. So the 3 I singled out was Susan. What if we spoke about it, you know, in length? What if she doesn't retire? What happens if the Worlds are not every other year? Margot Lum. What happens if the war doesn't happen?
Yes.
Is there 6 extra British in there? Is there more? And I've got Cassie as well for that big injury just after she wins. You know, is there a window then between 99 and before Nicol David sort of starts her dominance in 05? Is there that window for her to have dominated and win 3 or 4 worlds?
Yeah.
Or 3 totally different scenarios. Which one of those do you think is probably the biggest sliding doors that would have affected this ranking the most?
Well, I think Cassie would have shot up a lot without the back injury, right? You know, and so like, you know, she would have had a larger leap than the others.
Yeah, no, I'd say because you know she was what 14th, 15th, whenever we landed on her.
Yeah, I mean, we even started with her even lower, and like you know, but it's like if she had, you know, I mean, she was such a great player when I saw her playing, and it just didn't last that long because of the injuries. Yeah,
even if she just wins one more world, she's going to be jumping up, and we're going to be arguing with her and Carol and Vicky.
Right.
What happens if she wins 2 worlds and a British? Well, right, she's going to be top 10 now, easy peasy.
Yes, and be world number 1 a lot longer, and just be a more dominant person. But she doesn't have that resume because of the injury. Yeah, so I'd go with Cassie.
With Cassie. And then last, I got 2 awards left. I'll do this one next. The one game. Who are you picking for one singular game? Your life depends on it. I mean, it's probably obvious, but it is again a. Do you want Heather because she was so dominant?
No, I don't. Because
do you want should be?
She was never under pressure. She was so much better. So she never had this like, oh, it's 2-all. And I'm going back out for the 5th.
But
she never had that.
Is it a case of I don't know if you're into country music at all, but have you ever heard of the song "The Devil Went Down to Georgia"?
Of course.
Which, for the people who haven't heard of it, the devil goes to Georgia, tries to claim a soul, sees somebody plays the fiddle, challenges him, and the fiddle player is just that damn confident. He doesn't care that his soul's on the line. You know, the devil does his go, and then he goes, "Take a seat right there, and I'm going to show you how it's done." Is that the case of Heather just going, "Yeah, you're a really good squash player. I'm going to show you what real squash is"? So,
I look, I love Charlie Daniels, love that song, and but the one I love would be Sarah Fitz-Gerald.
Okay, I'm going to assume from I mean, obviously the match you mentioned earlier, saving match ball after match ball, and just
7 match balls in the world championship. I don't think that's ever happened. That number.
No, I mean people revere. I mean Hanya's just had it. Obviously, she's not on the list because not eligible due to age. But she just had it. She was 9-3, 9-2 down, par scoring to 11, and wins it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between the World Open and the TOC, and the semis, the finals of that. I mean, I just Fitzy was incredibly clutch. And if I only had one game, I'd want somebody who's been through it. Heather was just too good. So, I mean, I think she got nervous. She, had to deal with nerves, had to deal with pressure. There's a unique pressure that you have when you're undefeated, when you haven't lost. There, it's very different. You're playing not to lose. But who else you have on the list?
Sherbini.
Yeah.
Just we spoke about
how many comebacks has she had, right?
Yeah,
unbelievable.
It's one of those ones where when the commentators are like, "Oh, 2-0 down," but you never know. And most of the time, you're like, "No, we know the person who's 2-0 up is going to win."
Yeah.
But when it's Sherbini, you're like, she could win these next 3, 11-2, 11-2, 11-4. She. And she just did it with who was it? Siva. There was somebody she lost the first 2, and then she won the next 3, and it was like, how did you lose the first 2?
Yeah, incredibly clutch.
Yeah. So,
I'm still going with 50 though.
Yeah, 7 match balls is, it's pretty good. So we'll give that one to Sarah. Then we'll give that to Sarah, and then the last award. I've got as the most underrated champion, which I think there's quite a few because we've had the people dominate like we have at the top. The people who have only won 1 kind of get forgotten. So sort of the 3, and I'm going to add one because you mentioned her, and we added it into our list. The ones I had was Vanessa Atkinson, who I think with her. Obviously, being with James Willstrop and him playing after she retired and her doing the commentary, I think people forget that she was a world number 1 and a world champion. And she just run into the buzzsaw that was Nicol David. I think people forget that. Vicky Cardwell, who obviously we had at 10, I think people forget about her. If we mention, we mentioned the Antipodean players. I mean. We had Heather, Susan, Michelle, Sarah, Rachel. We had five of them just ahead of her. So I think she sort of gets forgotten in that. People mention, just to go back to James, people mention how great James was. James did make out top 20, but people remember how great he is, and it's not often you heard Vicky's name get get called.
No, that's right. I mean, there was a little bit when Sarah was playing her daughter, but I think, you know, if you're prominent, people at least know who you are. You know, the way Vanessa, everybody knows her through the announcing, right? She's traveling a ton, so she's physically present. And you know, I haven't seen Vicky in years and years, and maybe that's my fault, but like, she's not as present. And you know, and also, yeah, she came from a country where there were a lot of other great squash players. So imagine if she came from a country where she was the only one ever, say.
Yeah, or the first, you know,
Or the
either.
first. Yeah.
And then the last, and then two more I've got is Michelle Martin. I know we had her seventh,
Yes.
but I feel like she can get overshadowed by Susan, by Sarah, and by Heather.
Yeah.
And she's got her brothers to contend with, which
let alone her brothers. Yes.
Let alone her brothers. I know she won more than them.
Well, yes.
You know, how often does Rodney get mentioned just for his coaching, let alone, you know, his play in Jahangir and Jamshir? So I feel like she can get forgotten. And then the last one, who you brought up and we added in at 11, Carol. Carol Owens won 2 worlds. You know, so, you know, is there anybody else you'd say is sort of underrated as a champion?
I mean, Leilani, completely forgotten about now. You know, I love those players from decades ago, and we just, you know, only have photographs of them. There's no video. It's really hard to know what was happening. So, you know, like Margaret Lum. I don't know, Margaret Lum. Like, yes, maybe she was, you know,
but she's forgotten, not underrated.
She's completely forgotten. And underrated is different, where it's like you think about them and you go, like maybe they weren't that good. And then you look at the stats and you're like, wow, they were good. Yeah, I think Michelle Martin for me, when I got into writing and covering the game, she was the dominant player. And you know, people have forgotten that. And you look at her statistics, like I did, I was like amazed how dominant she was that period. You know, and I think there's only 5 women in the PSA Hall of Fame right now, and she's one of them. Like that's, you know, she's a legit great player. So I let's go with Michelle.
Yeah, no, but very, very happy with that. We're going with Michelle as our most underrated champion. And that's it. That is all I've got. We've done the men, we've done the women. I am sure the arguments will now ensue, and I am looking forward to people texting me saying, no, you should have Nour at 1, you should have Nicol at 1. No, why isn't Susan higher? Why isn't I'm sure I get somebody arguing for other players as well.
Yes. I mean, I just like with the men, I wonder if there's a woman we've completely forgotten about. And of course, I think people are going to argue about where we ranked them. And I think the recency bias, which everybody has, is for Nour El Sherbini. People are really want to put her as the best ever. And I said 5 years ago, I said Nour is going to be the best ever. And everybody's like, are you crazy? Like, she's only won a couple World Opens and lay away. And like, that's what's happened, that she's risen up to where we're having that conversation now. And in a couple of years, you know, she probably will be considered the best ever, but let's argue about it.
Well, she's got to get there. She's, you know, Hanya beaten her in the last 2 finals. She's going to be gunning to beat her in at least one more. She lost to it in the final last year as well. And that doesn't include Amina, who's obviously trying to create history, winning it so young, and she's obviously going to try and be on the trajectory that Nour was on at that age. But we'll wait and see. We can have this argument in 10, 12 years' time, and Gohar will be on it, Hamami will be on it, and you never know. From your perspective, Weaver, you know?
No, but I mean, you think about Gohar, so I think she's been world number 1 for 32 months. And you go, okay, like that's top 20 for sure. probably just top 10 right away, right? But then you say, if she never comes back, what's her career like? Like, that's interesting, right? Like, we all expect her to come back, and she said she's coming back. But if you look at her career right now, if she retired right now, like, would she be, would she have a better career than, say, Michelle or Sarah? It's like,
I
don't
think you'd
know,
be
right?
I think you'd be arguing between her and Raneem.
Yeah, Raneem's at that number.
Because Michelle's going to be arguing, well, I've got 2 more worlds. Like, straight away, I've got 2 more worlds.
And I was longer as world number 1.
So
those are the metrics, right? But like, then you say, well, I was up against like an all-time incredible player, Nour El Sherbini, who you put too low, but eventually she's going to be number 1, right? I don't know. Yeah.
But who's not to say? I mean, I can half see Nour winning the worlds for 26, 27, 28, winning one of the British, winning the gold, and going, I'm done. In which case, there's not going to be an argument.
No, I think we need to have this conversation on July 23rd, 2028, and talk about what happened at this tournament that is like this endless tournament where they play once every 4 days, because I think that will be an incredible determining factor. Who won that tournament? Even though it's like a weird tournament, and like not all the best players in the world are going to be there, and you only draw of 16, like.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, at the moment,
like not a real tournament. The World Open usually is the largest tournament, right? Usually a huge draw. You got round after round, and the rest days. But then you have the pressure. I mean, there'll never be as much pressure as the gold and silver match in the Olympics. Like, that'll never. Nothing will be like that.
No. Imagine because obviously we'll find out beforehand if it's going in Melbourne. Imagine if it's not going in Melbourne.
Brisbane.
Brisbane, sorry. Imagine the pressure then, knowing
this is the one time it probably will never happen again.
No, so
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, we will wait and see. There's a lot. I mean, there's 3 more World Championships. There's 3 more British Opens. There's 40 odd more months of being world number 1. Well, weeks as there is at the moment. But
yeah, I think today it said it was 822 days until the Olympics. It's like
no, they were counting down.
Time. It's a long time.
Well, thank you very, very much for helping me sort through that list. And I'll speak to you soon. And we'll do coaches for the sounds of it.
I think we got to do the coaches.
It's going to be a lot more research going into that. That's going to be finding names that need. We're both going to have a name the other one is not heard of.
Oh my God! I mean, like, how do you begin? I mean, hardly anybody had coaches a while ago, or like if they did, it was just the teaching pro at their club. I mean, nobody ever traveled with a coach, and nobody had coaches with them. So that's a whole ball of wax. And then you have all the coaches that travel. Yeah. That'll be fun.
Well, until then, take care.
All right. See you soon.